All right. As you know, the Minding Your Business podcast, this is episode 70, is brought to you by Brooks Brothers Consulting. Brooks Brothers Consulting was started by my brother Philip and I back in June 2013. We're a sales and operations development consulting firm. We work with small business owners, whether you're in the startup phase or you're in existing owner, as well as we work with financial institutions, which has been really interesting particularly for me. I'm actually going to be traveling to the Pennsylvania and New Jersey area, working with some financial institutions to help them develop their sales and kind of operation strategy, as well as make sure that they are accountable to working with low and moderate income communities within their assessment area from a CRA, which is the Community Reinvestment Act standpoint. So that's kind of been my mission as I've transitioned from a banking career into my own thing. And working with financial institutions has been phenomenal. So if you're working with your banker and you'd like for us to be involved, give us a call, 901-808-3801, or pass that on to your banker. If you're a small business owner, you're looking to build your planning phase around sales and operations, and you're going to need to do that. You're not going to always be able to shoestring your business and sit up in Starbucks. You know, nothing wrong with doing any of that, but if you want to scale up to have a business that supports you and your lifestyle, and you want to get it beyond just your hobby and your Facebook post hobby and things like that, you're going to need support. We're the partners to do that at brooksbrothersconsulting.com. That's www.brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Of course, the Minding Your Business podcast is powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Shout out to my guy Dominic Lawson with Owls LLC, and the Startup Life podcast has been a great partner for me, so shout out to him as well. And we're building up our lineup. We've got over 6 podcasters as part of the Binge Podcast Network. If you're interested, you have a podcast, or you're interested in starting a podcast, you have a voice and you've got something you want to be able to talk about and control your narrative, you need to get with us on abinge.com, and you can reach out to me or inbox me or even email me, Ron at themybpodcast.com if you're interested. And you can like all that on Facebook. So the Binge Podcast Network has a Facebook page, as does this particular podcast, the Minding Your Business podcast. Listen, episode 70, we are budgeting for 2019. But first,
what we do here is go back.
So, thank you all so much for joining in on the Minding Your Business podcast. Today is, wait a minute, what is today? Today is Friday, November the 16th. I'm trying to keep up with my days, y'all. When I was doing a little bit of traveling, it's easy to get off kilter with the days of the week. So, and then we had Veterans Day. What was that, Monday? And so shout out to all the veterans, men and women, who committed their lives to protecting this country that we call the United States of America, and all the armed forces platforms. Thank you to those men and women. If you didn't get a chance to do that on this past Monday, and you can do that every day, is to thank those folks who made that commitment. There's a lot of other things they could have did other than make that commitment. So we thank them for that. Welcome to all my Facebook Live folks. Gerald Jones, what's going on with the Bob Black podcast? Make sure, as always, you check him out. Muffin, what's going on, girl? Andrea, what's going on? Justin Spencer, what's going on, my brother? Chris Daniels, what's up, man? Olivia, how you doing, lady? What's going on? Shout out to everybody. Scott Kenny, Shavandra, Shay Brown, what's up, sis? Philip Ashley Ricks, cousin Lisa out there in Columbia, South Carolina. Dominic Lawson, I already mentioned. D. Young, Kaylin Johnson, what's going on? James Bernard, what's up? Janet Hayes, what's up, Ma? What's going on? Thank you for those bowls. The girls loved them. Brother Woods from the On channel. Make sure y'all subscribe. Y'all cut the cable. Y'all listen to last week's episode. You know to cut the cable. Bill Stimler, what's going on? Also in the banking industry. Great banking partner for a lot of people. Not just now, but over many years. Sherman Brown, what's going on? Make sure you catch his book. Make sure y'all post his stuff. Those that are on Facebook Live, make sure you post all your stuff up there as you deem necessarily to connect and hopefully do business with each other. So today's episode 70 of the I can't believe episode 70. I started this podcast August of 2017, and here we are at episode 70, man. This is a testament to all of you, those that are listening live on Spreaker, those that listen and share the podcast, that share things with me. Man, I really appreciate all your feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. For those on Facebook Live, friends and family there, thank you all. We have crossed over 25,000 downloads of this podcast, which is pretty significant, again, considering there was no big budget, there's no celebrity posting, there were no gimmicks. I didn't have no 50 Cent get shot 9 times marketing strategy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I really appreciate everybody with all your support on this. A few things that I want to do real quick. Today's topic, we're going to talk about my 7 tips for effective budgeting, stress-free budgeting that I want to share with you all on today. Things that I've learned, things that I've read. I'm going to share with you my story really quick in terms of a mistake I made around budgeting and around finance that nearly cost me everything. And then I want to go through Ron's rundown, which I'm going to do here first. We're going to go through the rundown of things that are going on locally and nationally. So let's go ahead and get that rolling here now. So Ron's rundown. Let's do this. So some sad news that came from the University of Memphis. A former Tiger, Kareem Azab, passed away. He actually played on the team last year. For me, as a former Memphis Tiger, actually an alumni, former Tiger player for 1 year, it's always tough when you lose someone so young. He's 22 years old, man, young guy, had his whole life in front of him, and was diagnosed with leukemia, I guess not quite a year ago, and then passed away on yesterday. So that's very tough from a local standpoint. National standpoint, of course, people are mourning the life transition of Kim Porter, who was the longtime girlfriend of Sean Puff Daddy Combs, had 4 children, and was just 47 years old, and she passed away on yesterday. And so people have been sending condolences and things like that. Definitely condolences to the Combs family, to the Porter family, and all the way around with that. This weekend, so I wanted to get some of that news out the way so I can get some brighter news, because it's just unfortunate when you have people that have transitioned life in that way. But this week, shout out to Cynthia Daniels Company. The 40 Under 40 Urban Elite is on this week, which is phenomenal. That's a great testament. It's a great event. If you haven't had a chance to go, it's tomorrow, November the 17th. For those that are in Memphis, it's going to be at the Hilton, which is, I believe, the old Adams Mark hotel right there at Poplar at 240. I believe I've got that right. So anyway, we've got that going on tomorrow. And there's a list, of course, of 40 phenomenal award winners. And I want to go through that list real quick. Again, this will mean something probably more for people connected to Memphis and people in Memphis. But this is a great recognition. The Memphis Business Journal has their top 40 under 40. I've had an opportunity to be a part of that, and definitely shout out. I'll get the list for that on a subsequent podcast episode. But let me go through the names real quick of the award winners for the top 40 under 40 Urban Elite. And they're in no particular order. I'm just going to go through and run down real quick. Shout out to Aaron Patrick Campbell, Ashley Robinson, Ayanna Ford, Brandon Benson, Brandon Bogard, Brooke Jones, Candace Gross, Cheers Creative, Kristen Webb, Christina Watkins, Chutney Young, Courtney Richardson, DeMar Roberts, Dr. Audrey Townsend, Dr. Shardell Davis, Dr. Davin D. Clemens, Dr. Mario Brown, what up, frat? Dr. Melody Waller, Dr. Reginald Robinson Jr., Erica Hemphill, Janelle Scott Robinson, Jerica Phillips, Jonathan Watkins, Joseph Long, Cameron Whalum, Carlene Roy, Kelvin Woods, Lisa Williams, Lori Spicer Robertson, Miss Shepard, Louisa Shepard, Morgan Adams, Nikayla Boyd. What up, Sean? What's going on, man? You got her on, didn't it? Yeah, that's what's up. Patrick Henry, Rachel Knox, Robert Davis II, Sheena Freeman, Therese Wilson, Trey Robertson, Valencia Smith, and Zaquisha Green. So that's your top 40 under 40. Shout out to those folks, man. That's phenomenal. It's great recognition and the sort. So we're going through all of that. Tons of things going on locally. You've got the city council getting ready to turn that thing over. So that's some of your politics. People are still reeling or excited, whichever side of the fence you're on, from the midterm elections last week. You had Kojic decide to come back in 2021. They're bringing their large event back to Memphis from St. Louis. So that's something that's big. Mayor Strickland's pondering some hotel tax limits and things like that. There's a ton of things, again, going on locally. You can check out whether it's the Commercial Appeal or the Daily Memphian, whichever one that you like. From LinkedIn, real quick, going through the rundown. So more through the rundown. The FDA is cracking down on e-cigarette sales. So y'all that are smoking them e-cigarettes, get ready, because it looks like the FDA is going to start coming down on that for whatever reason. I don't know. Y'all can read about it and see. Something that's coming about too is the job market so tight now that people being companies are starting to hire with one phone call, they say. This is according to, again, part of the rundown and in the Wall Street Journal. Some employers are now, after one phone interview, they're making a hire. So if you've had that experience, definitely let me know. I don't think that's been the experience of too many people yet, but apparently it's enough that people are writing about it, that there's some folks now that in the job market, one phone call is the one-hitter quitter, and they're getting the job. So, hey, what can I say about that? But I don't know too many people, again, that have experienced that. So anyway, that's part of the rundown. Thank you so much for sharing articles, for those that sent in information, things like that. If you want to send things for the rundown, I'll go through it. Just inbox me if you're on Facebook, or email me at Ron at themybpodcast.com. Yeah, make sure I get that right. Ron at themybpodcast.com. Shout out to some more people here on Facebook Live. Alexi, what's going on? Zane, what's going on, brother? Elliot, the main sales, main T-shirts. What up, man? Nikki Carr, what's going on? Yeah, Sherman, I'll be back over there in just a little bit once I get done, my brother. So anyway, listen, let me get to the 7 tips for effective budgeting. One of the things that's always critical, it doesn't matter whether you're single, certainly matters, if you're going to be married, but they have just as big of importance, is your ability to manage your resources, money being one of them. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is managing your money, managing your time. So when I talk about budgeting, I'm not talking about it just solely from money. That's what most people discuss. When they hear budget, they automatically think dollars and cents, and they think money. And I'm going to mean that too, but I'm also meaning things, in terms of your time too, because how you budget out your time is going to be critical. It's critical now, but it's certainly going to be critical next year as some things begin to evolve and you start getting into election season. And 2019 is going to be a booger bear, y'all. I'm just going to tell you right now, from what I'm seeing, and a lot of people don't pay attention to the banks and things like that. other than, swiping their debit card and looking for their direct deposit. But I'm just telling you, some things it's going to be some funny stuff, interesting stuff going on in 2019. And so you're going to need to be very diligent about your budget if you haven't been budgeting. So let me go through. Here's my top 7 tips around budgeting. And if you're on Facebook Live or you're listening live on Spreaker, share your comments. If you've got other tips that you use, or you've got questions, things like that, make sure that you hit me on that. So here we go. So tip number one that I like to give is you've got to understand when you're budgeting, y'all, you got to understand what the goal is, right? What is your goal in budgeting? And so for me, right, my goal is not to track every single dime that comes out of my account. Now, for some people, it is. They want to know, they want to keep a grasp on every single dime that comes in and goes out and things like that. To me, that's just going to drive me crazy. So I set a particular threshold that I like to look at. So you got to understand what your goal is. Your goal is to control your spending so that you can spend less than what you make, and then make sure that you're spending on the things that are important to you. All right, I'm going to say that again. You want to control your spending so that you can spend less than what you make. That sounds very basic, but a lot of people in this country, man, have trouble spending less than what they make. They make $5,000 a month and you spending, $6,000, you go run into some issues real quick. And so you've got to get a understanding of what your goal is. Number 2 is you got to track your spending. Take a week. So when you first start budgeting, right, if you're new to this, you can get overwhelmed trying to look at a whole year or look at several years or even several months. Take a week, all right? Take 1 week and, just watch, what you spend. What are you spending your money on? Use your online banking if you're using a checking account, or if you've got some kind of prepaid card, whatever you use to do your banking. Go back and look at that week. Look at what you spent on. Particularly, we'll get to this in a minute, look at what you spent on things that are necessities. So I like to say these are the things that if you don't pay, they put you on your ass, right? So if you don't pay your rent or your mortgage, they go put you out on your ass. If you don't pay your car note, they go take them tires and that steering wheel from you, all right? And you go be sitting on your ass, or you go be walking. If you don't pay your utility bill, yeah, I mean, you go struggle, particularly, here in Memphis where it's already been 30 degrees in a lot of parts of the country. So there's some things that are fairly essential to your budget that you want to make sure that you're taking care of. So when you're looking over that week, how much of your income went to that? How much of your income went to food and entertainment and things like that? You want to get a grip. So pull that up. A lot of times in your online banking, you can search it, narrow it down to that week, and then just evaluate. Look at, if I get paid every other week or whatever, every 2 weeks, semi-monthly, however you get paid. If I got paid $2,000, that means over that 2 week stretch, I made $1,000 each week. So for the week that you're measuring, consider that you made $1,000 that week, and then what does the rest of your budget look like? And if you spent more than that $1,000, and if all that money went to entertainment, even necessities, things like that, and none of it went to your savings account, that's where you can start realizing where some of your issue is. All right? So that's number 2. You got to track your spending for about a week, and then from there, you can begin looking at it on a monthly basis. You need to look at your budget. You need to revisit it constantly, almost every month. You need to do, and as you get to doing it, it'll become less tedious. When you first do it, might be a little convoluted, and you're not really sure what to do and that kind of thing. But I promise you, MYB, it gets easier the more you do it. Every month, sit down. If you're married, you got a significant other, whatnot. Y'all sit down and look at what you're spending, right? My philosophy is always this. Now, my wife knows, when I was the sole breadwinner, so there was a time early on in our marriage where I was a sole breadwinner, right? And one of the things I never did with my wife is, I never played this game of who's got what and who's doing, it was our money, right? No matter who was out making it. At the time I was out making it because she was in pharmacy school. But, I wanted her to do what she needed to do. She didn't have to come ask me for this and that. We just set a kind of a minimum to say, if we're going to spend more than whatever X amount of dollars is, let's make sure that we're both in the loop, and understand what that's going to and where that's going to benefit and that kind of thing. So there has to be the communication. There has to be the listening, right? It can't just be about what you think and what you want to do and that kind of thing. It's got to be some listening, and you got to understand that you're not always going to get your way. That's for men and for women. You're not always going to get your way. And that's fine, because in most things you don't always get your way. So keep that in mind as you're having a budget, particularly when you have to incorporate the thoughts and that kind of thing of a significant other. So, and I'll get to where I made a mistake with that nearly cost us. So anyway, number 3, so my third tip is, you've got to look at, so there's kind of the 3 categories I mentioned earlier. And I'll kind of break those out some more, which is your entertainment with eating out, things like that, buying clothes, buying gadgets and entertainment. Those kind of things, those are the things where most people get in trouble with their budget or with their money. It don't be the necessities, rent, mortgage, car note, utilities. Those aren't really the things that really get us. We end up falling behind on those things from these other 3 categories, which are things like buying clothes, buying gadgets, electronic devices and all this kind of stuff, and our entertainment, our going out, going to this function, going to that function, and you think, okay, $10 here, $20 there, $30 here, those things add up. So one of the things you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on with your budget is watch your entertainment, watch your eating out. Like if you go out to eat every day and you're spending $10, $15, $20 just on yourself every day, that's going to add up quick. You might not feel it right immediately, but it's going to add up quick as the week goes on. Because what you want to do is you want to be in a position where you're not just check to check. So like the day before you get paid shouldn't be like you down to $5 or your account's negative and all that kind of stuff. That's you're spending more than what you got if that's the case. You need to have a decent amount, in your account the day before payday. So it's not no situation where if your direct deposit missed that day, you just not go eat. And that's a lot of people in this country. So it just comes down to your budgeting, with that. But number 3 was you've got to look at the things that you're spending money on, and you've got to, if you're married or you've got a significant other, those are things that you sit down and you start looking at. Okay, if you're going to work every day, or you're going to the office, or you're a business owner, you're going to your business, what are you spending, money on? Are you in Starbucks every day spending $8? Are you, constantly in a restaurant eating lunch every day? Do you bring your lunch? So what are some things that you can do to offset, doing some meal prep stuff, dealing, with some leftovers, things like that. I know how some people are with leftovers and, that kind of thing, but you got to work these things into your budget if you want to have a successful budget. Number 4. So the number 4 tip is, and this is what has worked for me. Okay, so for me, using a credit card can be beneficial. If you use a credit card as an extension of your payroll, then you're going to have major problems. You're going to have major problems. So if you use your credit card, if it's an extension of cash flow, that's where it's going to be a problem. Where it could be a benefit is when you use it like procurement, which is the same way a business uses it. Use it to purchase your reoccurring expenses. Now, I'm the first one to tell you that some folks, you can't pay on a recurring type deal. You need to keep 2 eyeballs on. Like, here locally in Memphis, MLG and W, Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, you got to keep your eye on that bill because they'll throw some funny business. Comcast is another one. They'll throw funny business at you. But For the ones that are pretty consistent that you don't have to worry about, maybe it's your cell phone bill. Now that we got unlimited minutes and all that stuff, it doesn't fluctuate, probably not near as much. But those bills that don't fluctuate, y'all, stick them on your credit card and then just pay it off. Because a few things that's doing is, one, most of these credit cards have cash rewards and things like that you can benefit from. You know what I mean? Putting cash back into your account. Maybe it helps you with travel, things like that. I've done that in my business where I've been able to travel from the cash rewards of money that I always going to spend anyway. So if you've got that card and you can use it to buy gas and buy your groceries and all that, it helps you with tracking your spending better than the folks that just walk around with cash. That can help, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you want to really track your spending and then get some benefit out of it, use a card, use a credit card, things like that. Have it set to the right limit, for your monthly expenses, and then use it. And you'll find that, you'll benefit from the rewards and you'll benefit from the ability to kind of track your spending. Now, using cash only is definitely a benefit. It kind of forces you to, not be susceptible to overspending because you can only spend what you have. And that's great, certainly for your young people. When they're first starting out, you might want to put them on a cash-only type deal. If you're coming out of financial distress and things like that, you want to get back in gear really quick. That's one way to do it. Is you might want to do the opposite of what I just said, which would be take your credit cards, put them in the freezer. You know what I mean? So you really got to think about it when you pull it out and defrost it and do all that, and use cash. So go to a cash only basis. You know what I mean? So if you do that, it can help you with your budgeting as well. But I prefer more using a card, and then that way I can track individually, and then I can make adjustments as I go. So that's number 4, is look to charge it. Number 5 is, before you do anything, before you start spending money, the first thing you should look to do is save. So when you get paid, on a Friday or whatever day that y'all get paid, with your direct deposit, one of the first things you should look to do is get that money and then sweep a certain percentage. I'll talk about that percentage in a minute on number 6, but take a percentage of that and automatically put it in your savings account before you do anything. Because that's really you paying you. And you've probably heard that before from budgeting things, but some of us, we get our money and we quick to pay everybody except ourselves. First thing, you get the money and you run to MLG&W, you run to the mortgage company, you run to the landlord, you run into the Wells Fargo for your car or wherever your car is financed, and your money's just constantly going out. It's just a funnel to feed everybody else. Well, you work for that money. So that money should go to you and then your family if you have, immediate family. So look to put that in your savings first. Because psychologically, too, it's different pulling money out of your savings account than it is out of your checking. Your checking just going to be constantly flowing and constantly going. But if you put that money in your savings, you have to think a little bit more about it. Also, most banks have a penalty. That's a federal regulation. There's a penalty after you withdraw from that savings more than 6 times in a month. So that's something else that'll probably weigh heavy on your mind, is you don't want to get a fee from doing that. So it kind of forces you a little bit to have some discipline when you get paid. But when you get paid, a certain percentage of that money needs to automatically go into your savings. If that scares you, then you've got a budget problem, all right? Because you're probably spending more than what you've got. So now it's a question of managing your expectations, managing your vanity, managing your keeping up with the Joneses, managing all the stuff within you that you've got to manage to help you budget effectively. So what's up, Nia? What's going on, sis? How you doing? Jimmy, Tracy, what's going on? Jew, what's up, man? How you doing? Daniel Hodges, everybody jumping in. Madeline, Elwin, what's going on? That just shouting out the folks on Facebook Live. So as you go so my tip number 6 is this. This is something that came from Elizabeth Warren, who's a senator, United States Senator Warren. She'd had a book that came out a few years ago, and she had this has nothing to do with the politics of whether you like Elizabeth Warren or not, or vote for her. I'm not talking about any of that foolishness. So y'all can relax with that. Oh, here you go, Champ Ron, you're liberal. Nah, come on, man, relax. All right, I'm for the people. But Elizabeth Warren had a really good kind of piece about budgeting that I've looked to kind of incorporate for me and my family, which is this. It's the 50-20-30 plan is what she spoke to, and it was in her book. I think it was called All Your Worth or something like that. So if you can check out her book. But anyway, it's the 50-20-30 plan, which that means this. 50% of your income should go towards necessities. All right? 20% should go towards kind of your long-term savings plan. So whatever your savings plan is. And your savings plan is designed to then have a goal itself. So you're not just stacking money just to be stacking money. It has a goal towards doing something. Not just to spend, but it should be something that helps develop your family, or maybe it's something that you're looking to do. So maybe you've got a shorter-term goal with your savings. You want to take the kids to Disney World. You want to pay down credit card debt, you want to get ahead on your mortgage, you want to, whatever it is, 20% should go to that, and then 30% towards your lifestyle choices. So let me give y'all an example real quick. Let's just say you make $5,000 a month, all right, your take home after taxes. So roughly every check you're getting $2,500, every other week. So let's just say that's your monthly income is $5,000. So based on that plan, if 50% is going towards necessities, that means you should cap your necessities at $2,500, which means your rent, your utilities, rent, mortgage, whatever it is, your utilities, all those things should then be limited to roughly about 50% of your monthly income. So if you make $5,000 a month and your mortgage is already $2,000 a month, you're getting to that point where you're spending more than what you're bringing in, because then if your utility bill's already $300 or $400 a month, just renting utilities is already eating you up. So you need to look at your housing and how you're allocating your utilities, right? So you got to make sure that those things are in line. So things that are your necessities. Then if you've got a car note or two, depending on, particularly say a married couple, and maybe that number is $10,000 a month instead of $5,000. It's not so much about the amount of money, it's about how you're allocating it. So you can make all the money in the world. Y'all know what happened to Hammer, right? You can make all the money in the world, but it's going to be how you spend it and how you allocate it is where it's going to count. So that was Elizabeth Warren's thought that I agree with, and I've tried to incorporate. Now, it sounds much easier, right, than actually implementing it, which I realize, but it takes you time. But that's why you got to sit down and start and be honest with yourself and look at what you're doing. But again, it's the 50-20-30 plan, which means 50% of your income goes to necessities, 20% to long-term savings or short-term just savings in general, and then 30% towards your lifestyle. So again, breaking that down, 20 of your $5,000 a month, if that's your income, $2,500 of it should go towards your necessities, $1,000 towards savings, and then $1,500 towards your lifestyle. Your lifestyle is your entertainment. Now that may sound like a lot, but $1,500 can add up real quick when you start talking about buying clothes and shoes, things that you need, not just out binge shopping and things like that, but when you're buying things that you need, you're going out to eat, you're getting lunch, all those things that incorporate into your lifestyle, you should cap that at about 30% of your monthly income. And you can adjust those figures as you would see fit. Like for instance, for me, I've got, in my budget, in my household, I'm very top heavy, right? Probably 80% of my household budget is between about 6 bills. Mortgage, 2 car notes, what else? After school care for the girls, insurance on the cars, of course, MLG and W. So I've got about 5 or 6 bills that make up really about 80% of our budget. And then the other 20% is all the little knick-knack stuff, right? So for me, in my house, and I've got, of course, I've got my wife, I've got 3 young girls, right? And then I've got my dog, Boss, right? So for us, we've got to manage those little nicky-knack things. Those are the things that throw us off. It don't be, the mortgage payment. It won't be the MLG and W, those kind of things. If we get thrown off, it'll be because we overspend on things like lifestyle, right? And so that's where we have to be careful because, look, let me tell y'all, with 5 people, anytime we go out to eat, it's $100. Anytime, when my wife says we want to do something as a family, I already know that's $100 damn near to just walk in the door. And that's for real. Because if we go to Firebirds and sit to eat, the 5 of us, like I said, that's $90 and then tip off top. If we go to the fair, just to get into the fair, I mean, without any discounts and all that kind of stuff, but just to get into the fair, it's going to be $50. That's just for us to walk in the door. Don't talk about getting wristbands for 3 girls at $25 a piece. So the Goat Show, for me, the fair is a $200 endeavor. By the time I get turkey leg, you get funnel cakes and all this kind of stuff, and you riding rides and you're walking all over the place. And let me not even get into Disney World, okay? Disney World for me is, for us, for us to fly to Disney World, y'all, 5 of us fly plane tickets, huh? Y'all know where my tip's coming from now, right? Yeah, so 5 of us to fly to Orlando, just for us to get down there and back is, $1,500 going on $2,000. That's not even counting the hotel and all that. So what I'm saying is you can adjust these percentages based on your household and what your income is and things like that. But I understand that it can be a challenge, and sometimes, and every month may not be the same. Some months you may have a little bit more towards your necessities, maybe not as much savings and things like that. The beautiful thing is you can adjust it. Dr. Woodard, what's going on? Teresa Woodard, she was a guest a few episodes back. Darian, what's going on? Gabrielle. Greg Bernard, what's going on? Data Maxim, what's going on, my brother? Thank y'all. Those are folks, again, joining on Facebook Live here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Let's get to the last one, number 7. So number 7 is critical. I talked about using tools. So I talked about using your online banking and things like that. Some people are, they're more nerdy like me, and they'll use things like Excel and things like that. Excel is actually built in the most online banking platform. So you can export your expenses and your income and stuff like that into Excel, which allows you to, kind of play with it, play with the numbers, kind of manipulate some of the data and things like that to make it flow the way that you need to for having conversation. And so that's really critical too when you sit down and you start looking at your budget and you start looking at what you're doing, what you're not doing, what you'd like to do in the new year. So one of the things that my wife and I, we sit down, periodically, and then certainly as we look at for going into the next year, we start discussing, how we want to break things down, with necessities. And I'm the king for calling somebody like DirecTV and telling them to go to hell if they don't lower my stuff, right? Or AT&T or whoever. All right. And I suggest you do the same thing too. And it don't make no sense if you've been with DirecTV for 10 years and you still paying top dollar. No. I mean, as loyal as some of y'all been to some of these companies, you make that phone call, and either, you're going to be prepared to move on from them or go to a competitor or whatnot. But, I'm the king of that. I'll get on the phone with them folks in a second and either get my rate lowered or I'm gone. So you got to look at those kind of things. But we're always, my wife and I are always looking at, for the girls, do we have what we need? How are we putting that in place? What have we got for the future? So whether we look at refinancing the mortgage to shorten the number of years is something that we're considering now. Because the idea is to have the mortgage paid. At some point you want to pay the damn thing off, right? It's not about just perpetually having a mortgage. I want to pay the thing off, and I want to pay it off at a reasonable age too. I don't want to pay it off, while I got still one leg in and one leg out. You know what I mean? Let's pay this thing off at a point that we can go do some things. So right now I'm looking to refinance our mortgage down. We've got, I think right now it's set for us to pay it off at around age 61. I'm looking to cut that down so maybe we can pay it off at age 52. And that's critical for us. So let me give you into some of the strategy of how we're thinking of that may help you out. If we save 9 years worth of interest, we've got a reasonable interest rate, very low, under 4%. But if we refinance and save 9 years of interest, and our oldest daughter is going to be, let's see, when I'm 52, she's going to be 23. All right, so she'll be kind of, if she decides to go to college or she goes in a trade, whatever it is, she'll be a young lady. So then my middle daughter then will be 22. My youngest daughter will be 20 going on 21, somewhere in there. So I'm going to have these young adult daughters. And if I can be done with this mortgage, right? So my wife and I can be done with it. Think of the position it puts us in to help them out. Because one of the things as people we've got to get better as is not having every generation have to start over. And you should think about that as you're doing your budget. Don't have every generation. Your kids shouldn't have to start over from what and remake mistakes that have already been made. And I know how some of us are. Well, I ain't had nobody help me. We as people, we're naturally petty and we're naturally selfish, right? And we sometimes have this thing, well, I had to struggle and all that. What make them think they ain't got to struggle? No. You should put yourself in a position where every generation gets a chance to not so much start from the beginning. It's not to say they're not going to struggle, but they shouldn't have to relive mistakes and things like that all of us have already made. So I don't want my girls to relive mistakes that I've already made, that my wife's already made, and others in the family have already made. Let's leave those mistakes in the past, because they've been made. We should learn from them. There's ancient history. We should learn from them and then help your kids be able to move on from them. And we want to be in that position, so that's why we look at those things from a budget standpoint. Then there's other things that my wife and I are going to want to do too. Hell, after spending all those years raising 3 girls, that we had back to back to back, there's some other things we're going to want to get back to doing, right? In terms of our travel and movement and seeing other things and being involved in other things. And so if we can have that mortgage out from under us, man, that's love. So, man, I'm looking at that, and y'all keep me lifted up for that we can make that happen. So, but yeah, number 7 was you got to use the right tools. Use your online banking. There's all kinds of different budgeting apps and things like that. Just see what works for you. But you want some kind of platform that makes it easy for you to read and can help you somewhat analyze where your money is going. And like I said, I recommend the online banking. Most banks have a really good platform for giving you charts and graphs and, again, allowing you to export the information so that you can use it and kind of move it around. You know what I mean? So Dr. Teresa Woodard says, plant that tree so your kids can enjoy the future shade. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what it's about. Yep. I agree with that wholeheartedly, Dr. Teresa Woodard. And that's what you do. You plant and water that tree so that it grows and it can provide some comfort. Doesn't mean, and I love that she said that, because the shade doesn't mean it's not going to be hot, right? It's just cooler in the shade than it is out in the heat. Without that, y'all know how it is, especially these Memphis summers. It gets to be 100 plus degrees outside. That shade comes in handy. Same just like on your house. If you live in a neighborhood that's got a lot of trees and stuff, it comes in handy versus your house just out there baking in the sun. So she's exactly right. You want to be able to provide shade. You're not always going to be able to make it, where it's 100 degrees outside and it's only going to be 70 for them, But the shade makes it a little cooler. So that's what you want to do. You want to make it the temperature not so hot for your family. And so that's why you want to consider your budget and things like that. And you'll go through tough times. You know what I mean? Budgets are hard to adhere to. Most people are impacted negatively sometimes by the job market and Sometimes you're impacted by unfortunate health situations. Sometimes you just make poor choices in some things. So Dr. Woodard says, keep it up. I'm back to work. Okay. Yeah, go do your thing, Dr. Woodard. You got people to take care of, I'm sure. But yeah, that's what it's about, y'all. It's, put your family and stuff in a situation to continue to prosper and continue to progress forward. And so those are my 7 tips for budgeting. And so hopefully that's a benefit to you all listening to the podcast, those on Facebook Live, whatnot. Again, if you've got comments, make sure to post them in here or email me, and we can continue that conversation. Let me share with you, I kind of alluded to it, but let me share with you a mistake I made. So one of the things that I differentiate this podcast with from others is I'm sharing, I'm not academic, right? So I'm not a professor. I'm not just sharing with you a bunch of things that I read. I'm sharing with you with things that I've experienced or that I've seen done. All right. So one of the things that I made a big mistake in budgeting was not budgeting and just kind of flying off the seat of my pants. There was a time when, and I was making good money at the time, and I do pretty well now. Wife and I do actually extremely well. All things considered. But there's a time I was making good money. I'm running around, but what ended up happening, I got to a point where even in making good money, I was spending more than what I had because I was trying to start these businesses and, I'm bootstrapping them and I'm paying bills and I'm doing all this stuff. And before long, you start having to borrow money. You get into this rat race where you're, like I mentioned about using credit cards, y'all. I'm using credit cards not to strategically to get cash rewards and to track my spending, but I'm using them as extensions of cash flow, which is going to get you into trouble really quick. I'm running around, I'm pulling money out of this and pulling money out of that because I had this big ambitious goal, right? That I want to be a kingpin. Right, so I'm running around. I'm trying to be the man. I'm trying to be a kingpin. I'm spending all this money, and at the end of the day, it didn't work. And it got to a point where when I sat down and looked at it, man, it was eye opening. I didn't want to do it. And when you have money, what you do when you feel like your money's not good or whatnot, you don't even want to look at it. See, broke people get mad when you talk about money, right? They don't like talking about it because it reminds them of a sore spot. That's how I was. Now I was good after I got paid. That check comes in, whatnot. I'm good then, right? But where I had a challenge was when I'm spending more. So I'm making whatever I'm making, but then I'm spending more than that. And so because I'm spending more than that, I'm getting into these cash crunches. Right. And so then you start, you start maneuvering in a certain way and it's not healthy. And it put me in a bad spot. I could have lost everything because I was constantly digging more into that ditch. Because when you get into financial troubles and you could be making good money, that's the thing. Financial trouble doesn't always mean you're struggling and you got an income problem. Some people do. Some people have an income problem, but most people in this country have a spending problem. Their stomach's bigger than what they bring in. They don't want to be real about where their money's going, especially the ticky-tack stuff. The $10 here, the $100 there, the $50 this, the $40, and that stuff's constantly adding up. I spent a lot of money, when I was talking about this story, I spent a lot of money on entertainment. I'm running around, I'm in restaurants, I'm in bars, I'm picking up tabs, I'm doing all this stuff because I feel like I'm the man, I'm a kingpin. I make money, I make good money, but I wasn't watching it. I wasn't keeping it. I wasn't controlling the money. It's controlling me. Right? So the money just sitting back is just using me instead of the other way. Your money should work for you. Your money should be one of your top employees, and you don't have to be a business owner. Right? It's just your business. Just like this podcast, minding your business. That's what you're doing. One of the ways you mind your business is Your money needs to be an employee of you. You need to hire your money, and it needs to work for you. Otherwise, you go work for it. And when your money becomes your boss, you think your boss is bad right now. And I know some of y'all are sitting in cubicles and y'all trying to sneak and watch this on Facebook Live and hope that your supervisor don't catch you on Facebook stuff all day. But if you think whoever you're working for now is bad, your money can be a terrible boss. Because your money ain't going to give you no time off. Your money's not going to consider your work environment or nothing. Your money just go ghost, right? So make sure that you're not working for your money. Your money should be working for you. It should be employed. You should sit it down. You should hire it, and then you should fire it and make more money. All right? Lawrence Thompson, what's going on, my brother? Thank you for joining in. Adrian Henning, thank you so much, man, for joining in as well. Good brothers there on Facebook Live. But that's the mistake I made, y'all, in budgeting. I didn't budget. And a lot of people are like this. I just flew by the seat of my pants. I knew I got paid. I was doing different things. I've always been the type that I've never been limited to just getting paid one way, right? I've always got, even when I was working a job, I always, I got paid from it, and I have other things that I'm doing that I'm getting paid from. But if it doesn't matter what that is, if you're always out spending and you're always out, you're not really saving it. It's constantly going out the door, and you always have this mentality like, oh, well, I'm always going to be making more, right? So you always kind of feel, and that was my mentality. My mentality was, I got the next thing coming. The next check is on the way, the next direct deposit. I'm good, right? It ain't going to work. And then when I had child one, so I was 29 years old when I had my oldest daughter. And then the next year, I had my second daughter in 2011. So 2010, I had a daughter. 2011, I had a daughter. And then November, my youngest daughter just turned 6 on Monday. So I had my youngest daughter. So in 2010, 2011, 2012, I had boom, boom, boom. I got 3 daughters. All right. I'm not even through paying for the first one by the time I had the second one. So I learned real quick that I can't budget that. I can't operate that way, y'all. Right? But it almost costs us because, it puts you in a bond, right? It starts affecting things and whatnot. So make sure, don't make that mistake. Take time to look at it, be honest with it. And look, don't be mean about it, or don't be, don't panic about it. All right. If you've got income coming in, now you got an income problem, that's something else. That's going to be a different dialogue. But if you've got the income and it's a spending issue, you're going to have to be real about where you are and what you've got going on. Okay. That's the bottom line to it. You're just going to have to be real about it. Okay. So I made that mistake. Y'all don't make that mistake. Spend the time and look at your budget. So I hope this has been helpful for you all on today. We're here with episode number 70 of the Minding Your Business podcast. We talked about budgeting here for 2019. So as you go into 2019, y'all, make sure and make damn sure that you're watching your stuff and where your money and stuff is going. Sit down with your spouse or significant other. Be real about it. Be honest about it. And you're definitely going to get there. And, be real about the things that you really need. Be real about that. Some things, do you want it it's a nice to have, or is it real? Is it something that you really need that's going to be mission critical, right? So you've got to look at those type of things as you're budgeting. Make sure that you share this podcast, subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google, Spotify, everywhere that you can find podcasts, we're there. Go to the website, www.themybpodcast.com. That's themybpodcast.com. Don't forget about the Binge Podcast Network on binge.com is where you can find that. Listen to some great podcast shows. Several of them are out there quarterly. Don't Touch Nothing, Let's Be Real, The Startup Life, racially, what's the racial? I can't even remember that one. What's that one? Racially Divisive, I think, podcast. Yes. It's one of our newer ones. So Racially Divisive Podcast, make sure you check that one. Check that one out. But we're loading up that lineup. So thank y'all so much for that. Lawrence Thompson, thank you so much for your help with that. What's up, Tiffany? How you doing? Alexi, how you doing, my brother? Hope everything's going well. Man, listen, y'all have a phenomenal weekend. Thank you so much again for joining. And we'll catch you next week at episode 71, the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own.